Boom! We are live Thursday evening, extra episode this week. Aren't you guys lucky? You know what it is. Hope everyone is well, staying safe. We have a great one this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about something I am a huge fan of and a brewery I'm very excited to learn more about. So I'm going to get this one going. This is episode 60. Yes, it's a big one. All right. What's good, y'all? This is C-Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 60 of Vienna Lager, the podcast, Adjunct series, quarantine edition, 60 episodes. It's kind of crazy. It's weird with this new thing when we already went to like 160 on the first season and coming back and kind of redoing all these, milestone episodes. It's super fun. So this evening, folks, we have a great brewery that I've been wanting to learn more about for a while after hearing extraordinary things about them from our community. But before we introduce them, we are going to talk about our sponsor. Once again, we are sponsored by amazing Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff out of Massachusetts. Look at these bad boys right here. They make beard products to keep your facial hair super fire. So they do a whole bunch of stuff. They do oils, they do balms, they do beard sanitizer, which is crazy. I've talked about all of those things individually before. So this evening I want to talk about their signature series. So they have a series called Beard Beer that are actually inspired by craft beers, IPA and a stout so far. They're actually working with brewmasters. Huge breweries like Treehouse, Trillium, Lawson's, Vitamin C out of New England to actually create beard oils after those beers. So that is why we're working with them, because we're very much aligned. They're a super craft company. There's literally like a husband and wife team. They are based out of Massachusetts, like I said. All of the products, the actual oils themselves, and they are sort of super expensive essential oils and not fragrance oils. Very different. They explained on an episode recently Nick was on, and the fragrance oils can kind of make your skin chafe and give you like reactions, whereas this expensive oil is actually done by a Reiki master in Hawaii, and they bless the damn oils. That is crazy. So this is a signature series. This is my favorite. This is the number 9. It's got lavender, orange blossom, and sandalwood. You smell like damn potpourri. It's gorgeous. I'm not a beard product type of bloke, but like I really fuck with these. These are great. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing. I love their ethos. To be honest, like I really love their ethos. They are very, they approach it in a craft beer fashion. So it aligns with everything that we're about here on BAOS. So for you gorgeous humans, if you are looking to get involved in this, we have a special discount. Of course, they are offering 15% off using the code BAOS21. The link is in the description already, and basically, you go to the website, you order that bad boy, and if it's over $40, and these are like $20-something, it's free shipping within North America. So, mate, get some beard oils on ya. And on that note, this evening, folks, we are talking to a very special brewery out of Port Perry, Ontario. I haven't been there yet. I've had a few of the beers. I'm extraordinarily impressed. I'm excited to learn more. But you know what? I'm not going to introduce them tonight. I'm going to let someone else introduce them. So, welcome the whole team from Old Flame Brewery. First of all, welcome guys, welcome. And I'm going to let the gentleman below me, I'm not going to say your name because I want you to introduce yourself. And you're going to
Awesome, thanks Craig. We are Old Flame Brewing Company out of Port Perry, Ontario. If Craig would have allowed us, I would have brought the whole team on to the show tonight. But this is a few of us. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our head brewer, Cam Cottrell. Our communications and brand manager, Kyra Dietsch. And last but not least, my name is Richard Park, and I am the brewmaster at the Old Flame Brewing Company.
You know what that
Thanks
means?
for having us.
Hey, mate, you know what? Hey, you need another one. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out this evening. Appreciate y'all. I'm super looking forward to, wow, fans are commenting already. To getting into everything. Let me just quickly, so I guess I didn't tell you that because we are live on YouTube, people sometimes comment, ask questions or whatever. Bassam, who's a good friend and a fellow YouTuber, looks familiar. He got these beard oils. He said, I've used the lime scented oil and balm, haven't used the orange one yet. Mate, get on it. It's beautiful. His beard is glorious. Tiff is saying, I noticed your beard looking quite smooth in the last one. Love it. So, here we go. If people don't know, in the comments here, if you want to check out Old Flame on Instagram, Tiff has placed the link there for y'all so you can check them out. So, before we even get talking, you guys are pretty thirsty, as am I. And we're going to talk a lot more about this craft lager mix pack this evening. And we're going to start with this gorgeous little number. The Blonde Helles Lager. Look at that, man. Look at it. Beautiful. Would you guys like to tell us a bit more about this one?
Yeah, it'd be my absolute pleasure. So we'll work our way through the series tonight, but the order that we'll take our beers is from lightest to darkest. I think that way we'll be able to capture all of the nuances as we go.
Perfect.
But this blonde Helles lager for us is extremely special. It's funny, is I was actually just on the phone with our malt supplier in Germany. And one of the things we talked about was this style of beer is really, it represents a brewer's pride in the sense that there's nothing you can really hide from. There's not much to it. It's not a complex recipe. You have some incredible base malts from Germany, Bamberg. And at minimum, we're giving it 28 days to make. But man, once you get into it, the beer kind of talks itself. It's extremely crisp. It's extremely refreshing. It's one of my go-to beers. But why don't we kind of get into it, and we'll let everybody else kind of contribute.
I love it. I think we all kind of sipped anyway, but get it in, you guys. Cheers. Look at the clarity on this. It's exceptional. It's great. It's got a nice balanced malty sweetness, like that nice bready, cereally vibe to it. Nice and dry. Touch grassy and earthy, not over the top though. A little bit of like mild bitterness in there that kind of brings it all together. It's glorious, man. This is the second time I've had this beer now, and it's just like a really well made, well executed Helles, and it's even cooler that you guys are getting the malt from Germany. That's dope. I love it. And this is sorry, continue if you're gonna say, Rich. Sorry, man.
No, I was gonna say it's. I really appreciate the comment about well executed because, execution is, we take it kind of seriously. And I don't know how technical we want to get it tonight, but, Cam laughs right over there just because it's funny what kind of arguments and the types of heated discussions our team will have over the smallest little detail. And it's funny, even Kyra and our front of house team and really across the board, like the care and the attentiveness to detail is actually scary. It's probably one of the most like gut-wrenching positions to be in at Old Flame, to be on the production side, because everyone will call you out on everything.
Right. That's good. That's where you need to be. And that's, I feel like for this style, there's a lot of room for mistakes and no room to hide it. So that attention to detail seems extraordinarily necessary. Should we touch on this pack, or should we just explain that that's what we're going to be drinking tonight, maybe, and then we'll get into the beer histories?
I can chat about the pack here.
Yeah, tell us, Kyra.
This craft lager mix pack, we're just so excited about it. So it's hitting the LCBOs on May 23rd. And the reason why we're so stoked about it is that we just really think it's a unique pack filled with lagers. And that's a huge feat to be able to say and to brag about. And we always take a huge pride in the fact that our box and each of our cans are designed to be an invitation back to the brewery, right? We want people to come once this COVID is over. We want people to come visit us, witness the magic of the tap room, and hang out and enjoy a beer all together, because that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. And I must mention, there isn't a single beer in this box that has not won an award, which is amazing.
Yeah, we're super stoked. That is thanks to Richard and Cam, all their hard work back there.
Bloody legends. Now, I love this whole idea that you can get the 4 core. Would these be your core or flagship beers in this one that we're going to go through tonight? Is that not accurate?
Yeah, no, that's our core. Those are our 4 core beers that we take pride in.
I love it. So just for people who know, we're gonna get to it, but we've got the Helles Lager, Vienna, Dunkel, and then a black lager. So it's gonna be a crispy evening. I never get to do this, by the way. I usually, because of the way that this type of platform is, I've kind of got to always be drinking something different and documenting, and I never get to just sit there and drink crispies all night. So I've been very much looking forward to just hearing about the beers and then crushing them. It's glorious. I'm so excited. So I want to get into the beer histories of you guys, then we'll move into the history of the brewery. Shall we start maybe with Kyra, ladies first? Would you like to talk about how you got into craft beer?
Yeah, for sure. So I was pursuing a degree in media studies a while ago now, I guess. And I was just sitting in the classroom and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, how am I going to merge like this degree with like something I really enjoy doing and pursuing? And it just hit me like a train. I was like, man, I love craft beer. Like, why don't I just try to merge the two and pursue that? So really just started on that road. After school, I worked with a PR company that fronted Labatt. And then that was a really great experience. I learned a lot, but I really wanted to get into the craft scene. So Old Flame was hiring and I started as a bartender and I kind of just worked my way up to fronting all communications and brand experience. And I just love it. It's super awesome. I get to talk beer all day and I do it in my spare time too. So
this is beer.
It's just really great. I'm super blessed. Yeah.
I love that you started as a bartender and ended up in comms. Like that's the upward mobility within a small company like that is very cool. That you're able to go, show an interest in that, have your history in that, and be willing to even be doing PR at a macro, and then come to a micro and be like, look, I'll start as a bartender and work your way up. That's dope.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very very cool. Cam, you haven't said much yet, mate. Let's get your history with that glorious hair you got there. Oh, I love it.
I was just enjoying the beer. I really appreciate you commenting on the clarity. That is something I've worked so hard on lately. I can't even tell you.
Really?
So,
oh, dude,
I was enjoying it.
Okay, I love that. Honestly, this is one of the clearest beers, and I guess you can't really see it in the camera, but it's got this like sexy ass little like bubble burst thing coming up from the bottom. I tried to have like somewhat proper glassware, and mate, well done.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, honestly. My history. I'll just go right with my history is a little bit. It's interesting that I'm at German beers now because I actually started really getting into beer when I was living in England. My wife was doing a master's degree there, and I was a bartender as well. Similar story to Kyra, and I fell in love with cask beer.
Right.
And yeah, go figure, right? And the thing that brought me back, I started home brewing when I got back to Canada after living in England, and I couldn't get enough. I couldn't find the flavor varieties that I wanted to from cask beer, and eventually I quit my job and went to the brew college, and got my Niagara Brew College. Yep, where I met Richard actually. Which is where this connection comes back in. And then I went to work at Collective Arts Brewing in Hamilton for just short of 3 years until Richard contacted me earlier in 2020, and we started talking, and he preached the gospel of German lagers, and I was sold instantly.
You can't say no to the man. Look at that face.
Absolutely not.
I love it. I love that everyone, so many people go through. There's like two ways, I guess. Either go through that school or you go through, like every city has their kind of like brew school brewery. Like I think Toronto is typically Mill Street, Amsterdam, stuff like that. Montreal, we got Crispyboiz, Trois, stuff like that. So it's like, it's one or the other. It's just so fascinating. And I imagine that it's like, it seems like that's where a lot of those early connections are made. And then you're able to leverage that down the track. It's like the Harvard of beer. You go there, meet the people, and then, people can cherry pick later on after. I love that. That's dope. That's so cool, man. Thank you. Uncle Rich, talk to me.
Yeah, so actually, before I kind of get into mine, I got to say, I think one of the coolest things about working in the beer industry, specifically, maybe broadly Canada, specifically Ontario, and very much like at Old Flame, I don't think anyone, you can't really meet anyone in our industry that said that they wanted to be in the brewing industry.
Right. Like
somehow we all kind of just got caught up in this vortex and ended up here. Whereas like in other parts of the world, like for example, in Germany, like where you get vocational training, like you've decided to become a brewmaster at 17. And I think that I think that contrast is fascinating. And so for me, my story is not very much different in the sense that, I went to B school. I played in the corporate sector a little bit. I had one of my first gigs out of school was actually with one of the big breweries. And I started with the intention that I was going to be on the commercial side. So, sales, marketing, finance. I did a lot of my projects on that side of the business. but by happen chance, I got an opportunity to work at a brewery in Montreal. So Craig, I was telling you earlier that I spent some time in Montreal, and
Yes.
I was working in LaSalle there, and
Which brewery?
I very much thought of it as like so it's actually a Labatt's brewery.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, where they make Saint-Con, right?
Yes, of course, classic guy. For some reason.
Yeah, it's it's a cult following out there. It's really cool to see. But I honestly thought of it as a project that it was just kind of in passing, but man, I caught the bug, and I caught the bug hard. I try to stay there as long as I could, but probably in about 12 months, I found myself at Niagara College, finished that up, met Cam, and there was really only one brewery I wanted to be at, and it was at Old Flame. And similarly to Kyra, I worked as a shift brewer as part-time, made it to full-time, then started owning certain parts of the process, started increasing the team, and then fast forward now, and I get the privilege to kind of own the operations from raw materials all the way to finished good.
Love it. So we've got some nice sort of varied backgrounds here with different job roles, so it's going to be interesting to hear it all come together. I love it, guys. Thank you for that. This is great. I was just sharing this with Tiff, and she has just connected that. So people want to check out the actual beer on the Old Flame website. It's in the comments there. So now we know how you guys all got to Old Flame. Could you guys speak to the actual history of the brewery, how old it is, how it came about, and I definitely want to hear more about the focus on the German styles and lagers and stuff like that, and why that was something that was the purpose or the vision of the brewery. Whoever wants to go.
Yeah, I can chat about that. So our owner Jack Doak, back in 2013, he really set out to open up a brewery, and I mean, he was born and raised in Newmarket, so they sought out a brewery in Newmarket at first, in the old fire hall, and a whole bunch of red tape and restrictions kind of stopped them from ever it happening. So plans ended up falling through after like 11 months of waiting, right? It's always a waiting game when you gotta like deal with government stuff, but it ended up falling through. And I remember Jack always talking about how he was super bummed. They didn't know how they were going to come back from that, and turned his attention to Port Perry, which had really been a spot that was near and dear to his heart. He would always pass through with his fam on the way up to the cottage, and there was a building for sale, and it was for sale for 11 months. The entire time that they were in Newmarket trying to get it up going, this building was for sale. It was most recently the town's LCBO. They bought the building, and they started renovations. They didn't quite know how they were going to tie the name Old Flame into it, right? Because they had the concept first.
Oh, from
and
the firehouse.
They got... Yeah, so they were like, oh man, like how are we gonna tie all this in? And then so they start construction, and then they pull back the ceiling, and they find all these burnt beams. And they're like, oh my goodness, like what happened here? So they take a deep dive into the history, and there was a big historical blaze that took down the building and most of the downtown of Port Perry, actually. So there was an Old Flame in the building, if you will. And that was really like what signified like that we were supposed to be in this building here in Port Perry, and that it was meant to be our home. So after that, they took a deep dive into the history, and so the building was originally built in 1874. It was originally the Ontario Carriage Works, where they made horse-drawn carriages for people of the area. It traded hands many, many times, different uses, a blacksmith, shoe factory, tons of history. So you guys got to come to the brewery and get the full tour from me, because I could talk about it forever. Okay.
Here for it.
But yeah, and then I don't know, 8 years later now, the Newmarket Brewery became available again, and we couldn't pass up the opportunity to apply for the request for proposal, and by a miracle, we got it early 2020. And so that's where we were able to open our second location back in that original location that Jack first sought out in Newmarket. So it kind of brought the story full circle, which was really awesome.
That's super cool. So is the Newmarket location open now? Like
it's open for retail, like as open as we can be right now with the lockdown. But we were getting ready to open like right as they locked us down this third time. Like, we were super bummed because we finished the patio and everything. So we're hoping by the time this lifts, we'll be able to welcome some people through our doors in Newmarket. It'll be really exciting.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Smith is saying, can't wait till lockdowns and all that noise is done to visit more breweries. Hopefully this summer. Yes, indeed. Sorry, continue.
And Kyra, if you don't mind, I'll jump in on the German lager side.
Yeah, I was going to throw it over to Rich there for that.
It would be like, I guess one of the ways we can talk about why this focus on German lagers. But before we kind of do that, it's kind of hard not to talk about Old Flame without talking about Jack Doak. Right. And he very much wanted to be a part of tonight, but he kind of let the young guns take control here today. I don't know if he's gonna see this, but I think he would have had trouble with getting his webcam, hooked up and stuff like that.
I would have had to do it for him.
But let me say a couple of things about Jack, and it'll inform a lot of the decisions and direction that we've taken as a team and as a brand. That Jack is a really unique guy. He's had a career and a life that I haven't really seen before in other people. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's played in a lot of different spaces, anywhere from fitness to health and wellness, and then eventually he finds himself in the craft beer industry. But whatever kind of industry he's played in, he's always had a focus and a common thread between all of his businesses, and it's always been a focus on customer experience and just kind of blowing people's minds away when they spend their time and money at any of his establishments. So that's one. Another thing that I think is pretty central to a lot of the projects that he's done is he's always kind of decided to go against the norm and follow the road less traveled. So if you rewind, 7 years and you see kind of this proliferation of the craft industry, everybody kind of went in a similar direction. You saw the explosion of IPAs and ales, quick turnaround beers, the addition of ingredients, and it was just about being loud and bold and, who has higher IBUs than who, and the conversation was extremely exciting. So the only way at the time to go against the grain was to play on subtlety, to play on crispness, on cleanness, and rather than focusing on new, almost positioning your brand on tradition and the way it was always, or the historic factor of beer. And I'm sure Kyra will go into this a little bit later, but the name Old Flame actually is in reference to love lost. Okay. Everyone's kind of first love. It has like a romantic angle to it, whether it's a significant person, or a memory that you're fond of, or a place or a time, anything really worth remembering. So it only made sense that we designed these beers that were rooted in the tradition of beer.
Gotcha. I love it. That makes a lot more sense as well. Like, so therefore you got multiple layers to the name, from the original firehouse to the beams and the Port Perry locations, now to like something lost, being the tradition was kind of lost for a while.
Definitely.
Particularly in the boom of craft beer, which makes a lot of sense. And I guess therefore, so you guys were 8 years old, is that correct? From what you said, Kyra? Started 8 years ago?
Sorry, you cut out there.
Okay, no worries. Do you guys started 8 years ago? Is that when the first brewery opened?
Yeah, 2013. Yeah, we were able to open the doors 2014, a year after renovating the space.
Perfect. Okay, amazing. So you guys started out with the intention of predominantly focusing on German style beers, or like mostly lagers? Is that, or is it exclusively lager? Because I swear I've seen you guys do an IPA, so I feel like it's... Yeah, go on. Yeah,
we do IPAs, like we do New England, West Coast IPAs. We have a New England IPA called Sean's Way, and our West Coast is Perry Love Mary. But yeah, from the get-go, lagers were the focus. And yeah, I remember Jack telling me about a conversation with an industry colleague, Roger Mittag, saying, "Hey, no one's really doing lagers. Like, that is a path you should pursue." And we've just ran with it and really just tried to refine it as best we can and try to produce some of Canada's finest lagers to the best of our abilities, really.
So, which obviously you are doing, and based off the medals, based off like honestly, I had your I swear I tried your stuff years ago, like randomly at the LCBO. And my girlfriend's from and our producer's from Toronto. My brother's there, family. Like we lived there first before moving to Montreal, so I'm very tapped in with the Ontario beer scene because we were there so often. But I didn't realize the level of respect and the way that you guys are viewed within the community until, like posting on Instagram and I'm like, what's your favorite? I always just ask some stupid engagement question. Like, what's your favorite crispy beer or whatever? And you guys just kept coming up time and time again. So obviously you guys have been doing it, doing this style at a high level for quite some time. And I feel like would it be accurate to say that you guys had it's super convenient that you had positioned yourselves as these lager lords over these last few years when the trends had turned back around, like you were saying earlier, like Richard, it went from like just throwing everything in beer, which I'm all for that as well, but there's this new appreciation that seems to have hit the industry over the last 2 or 3 years, maybe probably longer in the States, where lagers have just dominated, and that's really what people are about. Have you guys seen an uptick of interest or appreciation from the wider craft beer community now, being that lagers are what the cool kids want?
I can jump in on that one a little bit.
Please
like
do.
As a guy who's coming from a hype brewery, I made hazies and sours for the most part previously. I can say that all my brewer friends are always talking about the Vienna.
Right.
So I think it is like, as a brewer, I love drinking our lagers. I think it's something you can enjoy on a day-to-day basis. You can have it with food. It goes with everything, and it's challenging too. So that's a big one. Like we want to move into the areas that it just is so fulfilling to make this great blonde, because there's so many aspects in it that change it so much. So I think people are coming around in the general populace to that as well. It takes brewers loving making it, and then the people will follow. And I'm seeing nothing but great engagement for it.
That's awesome. No, I love that. I like.
Yeah, sorry.
Please, no, go, Kyra, please.
No, I was just gonna say, building off of what Cam said. Like, I remember I was doing a brewery tour once, and I got into it with some guy about lagers because he's like, "Oh, lagers are boring," and I was like, "No, they're not. Like, they can be super flavorful." I was like, "There's tons of different ranges you can go with it." But yeah, I think they're really kind of starting to get the respect that they deserve in the industry, which is awesome.
That's a great point. I feel like that mindset I haven't heard anyone really say that for a while. Like, the lagers are boring. I feel like really like the scene has gone so far beyond that. I've said that absolutely, but that's when we were inundated. I've been into beer about heavily for 10 years, and that's what you drank. Started macro lagers or European lagers, and after a while they all kind of taste the same. And then it got really exciting to discover ambers and porters and brown ales and stouts, and then the Belgian stuff and the other English styles and whatever. And you go on to the crazy stuff that's happened, in 2016-ish with the haze and the kettle sours and blah blah blah. So that has come full circle. I think you almost have to go through all of that process. I'd like to hear what you guys think. Do you think people need to have gone through all of that to truly appreciate the value and the beauty of the simplicity of this style?
Let me take a shot at that. And I think one of the best ways I've gone about trying to explain the evolution of our industry is actually if you look at coffee.
Okay.
And coffee's really kind of developed over 3 waves. Wave 1 was like, coffee used to come in these like tin canisters.
Yeah, first wave.
You'd buy coffee and you used to get free refills. It was like a commodity. And so that to me represents when our industry was kind of in that macro phase. It was all light lagers and nobody was really thinking about what they were drinking. It was only just how much of it are you drinking? How much did it cost? And like, where are we trying to go?
Right.
But then in coffee, like wave 2 was all of a sudden people cared about like the country of origin. Like, where is it coming from? When it comes from Ethiopia, what does it taste like? When it comes from Jamaica, what does it taste like? And so, often a parallel I see is like, okay, all of a sudden people are starting to realize in our industry that there is actually more than one type of beer. You could have like different types. And then the third wave of coffee, all of a sudden, it's not the country of origin anymore. It's like, what farm is it from? What type of agricultural practice do they employ? Like, are they environmental stewards? So like that level of complexity is like continuing to get deeper and deeper, and you're starting to see that in our industry as well. And so I really think that craft beer is kind of in between that second and third wave where everybody knows that there are different styles. Everybody knows that within the style, you can have a tremendous range of good and bad. Beer, one of the complex things about it is there's 4 kind of primary ingredients. We've really dug deep into one of them, which is hops. And as brewers, as the industry, as consumers, I think we have such a good level of understanding for that ingredient. But man, like there's 3 more ingredients we haven't really talked about. Like malt. Oh man, when the industry like shifts over to malt, it's going to be complex. You could talk about terroir. You could talk about where it's from. You could talk about how the sunlight hit the barley as it was growing in the field and how that impacts the flavor. Water is complex. Yeast is complex. Like you talk to any of the guys at Escarpment Labs and, they're all betting on the fact that yeast is going to be the next driver in the conversation. So to answer your question, I think this whole journey that we've been on as brewers, as consumers, as fans, like we're kind of just in the middle of it. And there's still so much more to go.
Great point. I'd also like to mention that third wave coffee was invented in my hometown in Melbourne. So I already found that out recently. I had no idea.
Hey man, take the credit when you get it.
Got it right. I even learned how to drink coffee in Montreal, funnily enough. I messed up. Okay, that's dope. So I totally feel you. So I feel like that whole, even if people haven't gone through that journey, and that's a really fantastic analogy for any coffee drinkers to sort of like, to follow that through. There's almost like there's a new era of drinkers who didn't do what we all did and go through that sort of flavor wheel and stuff, and then being introduced to the game via New England IPAs or kettle sours or fruited sours or something like that. And I almost feel like because of the hype breweries, like I think Cam, you just said that the when the brewers make it, they have to make it fire, and then then the people get to sort of drink what the brewers are into because the brewers are making those primary decisions. That the people are almost being fast forwarded instead of having to go through that. They're coming on at the end of the trail there, and they just go right straight to haze. Yeah, this is beautiful. And they get the hype, they get excited, and because like the hype breweries are often making lagers, they're straight into it. So it's sort of like an interesting thing, and then that you guys are in that conversation because people are like, oh, they want to discover something if they were the new guys who only discovered it through like the New England hype type of stuff, which I think is pretty common these days from what I understand. You guys are just really well positioned to be like, well, you've been doing this. It's all killer type of thing. I like that whole concept that it can kind of work both ways. I think that's pretty accurate anyway. I would imagine so.
I went through that. Yeah. Like when I first got into beer, it was like macro IPAs, like stouts, and then like you're back to lagers really. Like I was part of that for sure.
You're part of the OG. Yeah. Totally. It's a different world.
And
yeah, go on.
I just wanted to say that I think there actually is like a natural palate trend we're going on. Like at least when I started, it was when things were really, really bitter. Like I remember a time where if it didn't hurt a little bit, it probably wasn't a good craft beer. And then you work your way around, and the New England IPA is like just by nature a much more balanced product. I think it's not as bitter. It's more firmly positioned in like a middle point of bitterness to like malt character gravity, obviously with your hop flavors coming up front. So it brings you back around, at least in a basic taste idea, I think, to your more easy drinking lagers that do like they strive for balance. I think. Right. And I think that's it is kind of a natural progression. I know I'm on it. I'm back to lagers, and I've done the whole circle now. So
yeah, I like. Yeah, it's a cool. I don't know. There's like this new. The appreciation is so much deeper than it ever was because of that journey. If I'm ever trading with people, I'm like, all right, what lagers can you get? Like I don't know. A couple of years ago, I'd be like, all right, what's the haze you can get? What's the craziest stuff? Now I'm like, just give me the lagers, man. Like it's an interesting like paradigm shift. I think for a lot of drinkers who. Who might not have. You expect people to kind of go for the trendy stuff or whatever, but for people to be excited again over lagers, I think is the coolest thing. It just makes a style that typically, like you were saying earlier, which like the traditional that might have been thought of as boring at one point, is literally the polar opposite of that, because it's such a complex and deep umbrella, and there's so much. Obviously, we're going to explore some more of that tonight. And on that note, I don't know how you guys feel about the next one. I didn't even talk to you about it beforehand about driving the tasting, but I think we're all about in the same level of our glasses there.
I need another one, so we might as well.
Perfect.
So, according to this box, we're going is it the Vienna or the Dunkel?
Let's do the Vienna next.
Let's start with the Vienna, definitely.
The one that says red. Thank you, babe. Tell us about this one. Vienna Lagers are impeccably underrated as a whole, I think. Tell us how this one came about, what the deal is.
Yeah, so this Vienna Lager, I would say, is kind of our bread and butter. It's the beer that kind of, it's the beer, it's not even actually in contention. It's the beer that put us on the map, in the sense that we opened the brewery with 2 beers. One was the Keller version of our blonde, so the hazy blonde.
Okay.
So you've had that one, Craig.
I have had that one.
And then our Vienna Lager.
Okay.
There's a whole another episode to talk about why we launched with the hazy blonde instead of the blonde.
Yeah, no?
Okay. And that's part of growing pains and funny stories in our history. But the red Vienna Lager, there was like a pure intent there as to why we wanted it to be one of our first brands. And it was one of the first brands we were recognized nationally. But man, this Vienna Lager, if there was one word that I would use to describe it, if there was one word that, myself, Cam, the rest of our production team, we try to achieve on a day-to-day basis, is balance.
Okay.
Balance through and through. We're very much looking for the middle ground in terms of the color across the spectrum. We're looking at an extremely balanced beer that's malt forward, but is supported with a really awesome hop backbone. And for the people who are a little bit sophisticated in their tasting, there's a high level of complexity that you can find. But also, man, this beer, if you wanted to crush them, you can crush them too. And so in a lot of ways, it's extremely, it has a lot of diverse occasions that it can play in. And honestly, I would say right now, this is my favorite one that I always come back to.
Big call.
Yeah, definitely.
Folks, cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
It's my first time having this one, hence the photo. I forgot to tell you, I do like the little quick reviews. I wanted to make sure I can. Wow, this is great. So Viennas are always great. They have that little caramel kind of real extra biscuity malt going on there. Wow, this is wicked head too. Nice and kind of like pillowy.
Hey, what batch number do you guys have? Because mine just kind of like shocked me at how good it was.
What am I? Is it red 42-43? No. Oh, 21st.
42-43.
Yeah, it says 20 April.
Okay.
April 2nd. I think it says 02. It's on the black part, so I can't see it.
I got a 36-37. I don't know if anyone else is drinking a 36-37, but that was awesome.
Yeah, this is killer, man.
The boys are very meticulous about their batch numbers.
I genuinely
Yes, we
respect
are.
it. After all that conversation before, I'm genuinely not surprised you even asked that question. Because I'm sure there's nuances and difference for each one. This is genuinely phenomenal. Like, really nice dryness to it, super crushable. Like, I think people get a little bit, and you guys could probably speak to that, because the next 3 beers we have are different. The SRMs are going to get slowly darker as we go. And I know there is sometimes a pushback from people who might not understand that dark doesn't mean crazy bitter and like intense in the scope of these styles. So maybe can we talk a little about like the flavor profiles of a Vienna Lager and sort of anything that people are sort of feeling about that. If people like see this and like, oh, I don't like dark beers. I imagine if you're bothering to watch a beer podcast, you'd be cool with it, but just in case.
Well, like even like I obviously I'm very involved with the tap room, right? And we'll be talking about the Raven eventually, but even it pertains to red and brunette as well. Is anytime they think it's a dark beer, I'd have customers be like, no, like I'm not into it. And I'm like, just try it. Like I promise you that it's not like other dark beers. And it's really magic when you see people's faces and they take a sip, especially the Raven, because the Raven looks so dark. And they take a sip and then, it finishes so clean on the palate, and their eyes light up and they're like, oh my goodness, like you're right, it's not super heavy. And like, yeah, it's really cool how you can just get such depth of flavor, but it's still easy drinking.
It's so cool. Is there anything I need to know about this beer? I'm taking one-word notes of any like tasting notes. So for people who are trying to, want to know more about this, what would be some of the like? Is there any hops that make a difference in this that makes this unique? Is there anything since you guys are all here?
So I can speak that one a little bit. It's really the malt bill on this one is very unique, and it's pretty historically accurate too, which I think is awesome. It uses a lot of just Vienna malt, like good quality German Vienna malt, and it's got a little bit of a specific German caramel malt as well that gives you a little bit of that touch of caramel, and that's really what makes this beer interesting to me. Is it's the balance between being crispy, being able to like really actually drink it, so it's not cloying or sweet, but it still has that flavor of caramel. And I think actually the batch I got is the same as the one you got, Craig, and I'm loving it actually right now.
Okay, this is exceptional. It's interesting because I've had the blonde and I had the Raven the black lager. So I was looking forward to the middle two to try them with you guys. Also, link is in the comments as well for this particular beer. But yeah, this is like, I feel like Vienna Lagers is something that we don't see often enough around, and when you do have them, particularly if you haven't had one for a while, god damn, this is a great style. Like, what is that? I feel like they're not even super common, and I feel like I don't see them around that much. Would you guys think, is that like a thing that you've noticed?
There's really not a ton. Like I've tried a couple that I think people are getting into them more these days. I think it's because the malt bill is a little bit more complicated, and you have to pay a little bit of attention on like your mash side of things. It really is like a ripple effect with all these beers, but this one specifically is if you change one thing a little bit, you'll see a huge change in the final product. So we're really trying to like highlight specific characteristics here. So I think people, it's not really in the history of Canadian craft brewing, but I think people are going towards it now. I had a good one the other day. I can't remember from where. It's not coming to me.
Yeah, they really genuinely.
One other thing I would add to that, Craig.
Yeah,
in addition to like the whole question of like where are the other Vienna lagers, I think also extends to this whole idea of just like where are all the other lagers generally. And a big part is I honestly do believe that if more breweries could, I think they would lager more.
Mm-hmm.
But there are like business implications to making lagers, and one of the reasons specifically on the craft side you might not see it as much is it's really expensive to do. And just without really getting too deep into it, just one example I want to give to you and your listeners is overnight, if Old Flame decided to do ales instead of lagers, our production capacity would double.
Right.
Just simply put, a lager needs to stay in tank for twice as long. And so whatever capacity or how many tanks you have, they get tied up for twice as long. And so it's a tough beer to really commit a big chunk of your portfolio to.
That makes sense. I was actually, when you mentioned this type of thing, obviously it's a conversation I would have with breweries often. That a lot of breweries want to do lagers in general, but it's not always possible with space, with tanks. Particularly during a pandemic when a lot of things changed, a lot of people had to pivot. They're not able to do it. Some of them were able to do it because it wasn't as busy as normal. So finally they could do it. So I've sort of seen both sides of it. Do you guys, being that you're right, because I think you said earlier, Richard, that there were like 28 days minimum you guys do as far as the lagering, when it would be 14 for an ale type of thing. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
generally speaking, yeah.
Generally, okay. I know it's sort of like depends on the style, but do you guys use the horizontal tanks at all, like those lagering tanks that I've seen a lot? No.
I wish.
Yeah, they're super cool.
They are, right?
They're awesome. Yeah. I think Yeah, the horizontal tanks are a luxury, really. And you see them at a lot of macro breweries. They have the horizontal aging tanks,
Okay.
just because you can pump multiple batches into that and then let it lager for very long periods of time. For us, it just means we don't have that luxury, so it's a little bit more work. And again, it's like Richard said, it takes up more tank time. Really, is what it comes down to. Is that aging tank helps you, make more beer faster, basically, because you're constantly moving it out of your fermenter and keeping stuff moving. So for us, no, it's a longer process than that. It's sitting in that tank for quite a while. And Richard says 28 days, but I think the vast majority of the stuff we got now is far longer than that. So,
Okay.
and that's just, it comes down to when it's ready, right? Like you check it and you hope it's ready. And some days it is and some days it isn't.
So you can do it. You can't rush these things,
No, absolutely not.
The slowest of beers.
That's actually a good point. Like, we always talk about how, there's 4 ingredients with beer, and we always say here that our 5th ingredient is time, because it's just such an integral part of our recipes, and there's just no way around it. It takes time.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, like, I feel like the results speak for itself. That time is well spent and well invested in the final product. I wanted to ask from your perspective, being that you guys are doing almost exclusively a style that is time consuming and resource consuming and stuff. Has COVID? I mean, obviously, aside from the obvious, I don't want to go on about it too long because we're all bored of talking about it at this point. But I feel like we better touch on it a little. I know you guys were already canning prior to this. You had multiple SKUs in the LCBO already, so you were moving that way. Obviously, you had the retail side of both the Port Perry and the Newmarket pubs. How's it been for you guys? Like, how did it affect it? What was the general vibe?
You always try to look. Sorry.
I'll let Kyra talk about the online side of the business, but one of the quick things I just want to quickly say is just one of the big things that we relied on during COVID, and this is just truly a shout out to the community that we do business in. Man, people rallied around us. Our community came up and they supported us, and whether it's the local people and residents of Port Perry or the surrounding community that made it a habit of coming out to Port Perry and visiting us out on the brewery, spending time with their family on the lake. Our fans rallied around us, and they let us continue our operations at the scale and level that we're used to, so we're extremely thankful. So I just want to make sure that if anyone from Port Perry is listening to this, if anyone from our community is listening to this is a big thank you to you guys. And I'll pass it over to Kyra to just talk about the types of pivots we made, which have been really fascinating too.
Yeah, Richard has a great point. Like, this whole move to like supporting local has just been so important for our industry, right? Like, people love craft beer, but it's really a lot of people have opened their eyes who may not always drink craft beer to being like, hey, I should support the local brewer rather than just going to the LCBO. Like, because everyone pivoted, like we love to say, to local delivery, right? So it just became so much more accessible for people. And like, for us, like, I was working on getting an online store going. Right. And then COVID hit, and it's like, okay, let's put our foot on the pedal on this, right? Because it's just been so vital to breweries to survive, is having an online shop and doing delivery. And so that's been a silver lining for a lot of people, and like ourselves and other breweries in the industry, is kind of that push to the online market. But it has sucked because we just love having people in the tap room, right? Like, that has been a huge hit for us. Our biggest love is that we love when people come to the tap room and see the magic, not just our regulars and our locals who are incredible in there all the time, but the tourists and the new faces that come through, right? It's just such an opportunity to make connections and memories with people. And we've just really been missing that, right? Because Port Perry is a huge tourist town, and in the summertime, on a Saturday, like, man, the place would just be absolutely packed. And like a big part of my role is like I would just make sure that no one would get turned away, like try to squeeze everybody in. People kind of packed like sardines trying to just listen to one of our amazing musicians, JJ, play live music. And so we've definitely been missing those connections. But it's not all negative. Like some positives, which have been good, is trying to get that warmth that we would usually have in the tap room to people at home, right? We would do like live, like virtual live music to kind of try to replicate what our live music Saturdays used to be. We started a program called the Beer Buddy program. So basically you buy a beer for your buddy and you get your buddy's name on it. We have a big chalkboard in the brewery, so it's just full of names, and we're waiting for the day that people can come in and like cross off their name and claim their beer when the taps are finally open and flowing again.
That's pretty. So that's something you guys have done since COVID, like had that out. You can buy somebody and
we were just like, man, like how do we kind of like instill some hope in people that we can gather again? And that was one of Jack's ideas. He's like, let's sell beers now so people can claim them later, and then they can come in and they'll see their name on the chalkboard, and it's like, oh, Toucan, love Kyra, enjoy a pint on me, right? So that's been pretty fun because we have like, I want to say like 150 names or something. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, like how many chalkboards are there, Kyra? It's like half of the brewery is filled with chalkboards. It's nuts.
We should get Craig
it's
and
been
Tiff's
pretty
name on there.
heartwarming.
Please.
We should actually. That's a great idea.
As soon as we were hoping to come back this summer, and then they closed the borders. Like come on, man. It's the sooner that everything gets back, yes, please. I actually always wanted to come to Port Perry. One of my good friends lives there. He owns a brewery in Whitby, and he's always told me that it's super dope. But I didn't realize it was a tourist town. Like, is it near?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Where from? Say the Durham, like the Whitby area. Say for people who might know, where is it? It's north of there, right?
Just 20 minutes north from there, right?
Oh, it's like right okay.
Yeah, so we're a really great day tripping brewery. So like folks from Toronto, it's only an hour drive from Toronto, and even in Durham region, like people from Ajax, Pickering, like it's a good day trip to come up, walk by the lake, shop on Main Strip because it's got all these cool Victorian looking shops with like signs hanging from the windows. It's classic. Come up for a pint. It's a great tourist spot in the summer, especially too. I kind of grew up in Port, and I didn't realize how many tourists come through until I actually started working at Old Flame. And I was like, this place is insane. Like, it's so cool how many people travel to come to Little Port Perry, right?
No way. I guess you didn't never appreciate it until you've really been inside that sort of thing. I love that. Tiffany's like, yes, please. Check us on that chalkboard. No, I love that. That's super cool. I like hearing that it's all positive and that the online business has definitely helped. I think that's one fantastic thing that Ontario does that we don't have here, that you can do that. And I think that's been a saving grace for a lot of businesses. And I heard recently that not only can restaurants be essentially turned into bottle shops, but you can actually start an independent bottle shop. Someone told me like last week that this is a thing. So like literally if I wanted to rent a space, I could just make a bottle shop like I can here. Is that correct? In Ontario now?
I think you still have to serve, I think you have to still sell food with it, but like it can be like a bag of chips, you know what I mean?
Yes, that's what my friend said. And I was like, are you serious? Like I felt like that is big news. That makes you, that's something that people have been fighting for in Ontario for the longest time. Aside from like the having beer in gas stations and convenience stores, and you can start an independent bottle shop. Like that's incredible, and that I feel like that's a boost for all the industries, whether it's spirits, beer, or wine. That's huge. That's amazing. I feel like that's a really great step forward. That once again, like you were saying, Kyra, it's not all negative. That is one super big positive from all of this craziness that maybe some of these archaic legislations have been able to be maybe adjusted or lifted, so that that not only supports new business, but it supports existing industries. Because that is a business in and of itself. all buying local. Like that's incredible. I love that. I mean, it's like rather than only how it's quite a process. Obviously, getting something into the LCBO like this bad boy. I can imagine is not the easiest thing in the world, particularly a mixer pack.
Yeah.
Maybe we could speak.
Yeah, that was a process to get into the LCBO. But for example, we just released our fruit lagers a couple days ago, and I was getting messages on Instagram saying like, "Hey, can we stock these beers in our bottle shop?" And yeah, it just becomes so much more accessible for the consumer, I guess, and for us to spread our beer farther than we would have thought, really.
Yeah. Do we want to talk a bit more detail about this, or should we actually, now that you brought up those fruit lagers, I wouldn't mind maybe even touching on just some of the other stuff. I mean, obviously you guys are the crispy lords, but you do a bunch of other stuff. Fruited lagers is a pretty interesting concept, and you have a series of them that you guys recently dropped, like this week, if I'm not mistaken, last week. Do you want to talk about that maybe? I'd love to hear more about where that idea came from. That's pretty dope.
I think this would be a really fun one to riff off of, actually, and I think Cam and myself and Kyra all have something to say. But we are, as you know, Craig, like we're extremely proud of our core lineup and what we call kind of our signature lager series, and we'll go through them today. But man, like from an identity standpoint, specifically within the industry among other brewers. You never want, and similarly to like an actor, you never want to get typecasted.
Right.
You never want to just be known for one thing, because you're out there and you're like, I can do more. I'm actually really good at the other stuff too. I want to be recognized as just a solid, good quality producer and brewer rather than just a lager brewer. And we've heard through the grapevine, like people will put us kind of in a spot, but man, one of the things that we'll always hang our hat on is our process and just like the obsession and meticulousness to our approach. And so one of the things that came up was, we always had this like blueberry ale.
Okay.
Like we like ever since kind of probably year 2, right, Kyra? Year 2?
Yeah, we've had it forever.
And it was a good beer. It was like a respectably good beer. But every year we're just like, man, how can we make it better? How can we make it better? How can we make it better? And I remember one of the first projects I got to work on was like, man, like I think this beer would taste better if we based it on a lager. It would come off crisper. It would come off cleaner. It would showcase the awesome blueberry partnership we have. And so boom, we made that transition. And then Kyra and I started riffing off of like, man, what would be the next fruit? And so like first iteration of this series, we played with raspberry, we played with lime, we played with grapefruit. What else I forget what we did, but this year we came out and we did watermelon and we did mango. And then, as Jack always is, he kind of comes in and he's like, man, what if like we built this campaign where rather than like because the eventual next step was like, man, what if we like had a blueberry lime lager? But we kind of pulled back and said, you know what, rather than us mixing it, what if we gave that power and that custom ability to the consumer, and they kind of decided how to mix it and what to match it with. And so we were like, okay, this year, rather than combining it ourselves on our back end, we keep all of the infusions with single fruit and release this like campaign about, what's your mix? How would you mix this? And so the evolution of our fruit series, as simple as it may seem from the outside, it's definitely been like years in the making. And this year was probably the first year we actually got it to a place where we're like, man, this could be something really interesting going forward.
That's dope. I saw the Instagram stories today, so I was like, I was like, okay, I gathered. I thought it was more people were choosing their 2 favorites, but mix makes more sense. Like actually blending the beers. That's a fantastic idea. I love that.
Yeah, I'm working on more videos.
The one I saw was super quick. I know you were just like getting people in the brewery and stuff about it, but it was cool, and they just like it was a really nice way to use the platform to sort of showcase the different fruits. It's like, oh wow, that one, oh yeah, like it makes you remember them more because you're hearing all these different people talk about it. It's very cool.
Yeah, And Cam, why don't you tell Craig, man, like our long list of like recipes we have in the back burner that we like want to get through.
Yeah, there's like way too many. And like the fruit lagers, like I have to be a little bit like step back from that because of course we're putting it on a base of one of like our lagers that I love so much. So like I've been kind of like, all right, Kyra, I guess I'll be in your video, but you know, I have to be like
he's
very
he's the purist on the team, mate, Craig.
Okay.
But that being said, I'm a convert, so
Okay.
I actually kind of like them now. So that's, and honestly, there's a lot of care and time put into those beers. So really, like, yeah, I guess we released them just yesterday, right? I actually,
Yeah.
for me, these have been a reality for like, how long? Like 2 months
So long.
now. So I've been dealing with blueberry for a while now at this point. But yeah, I think that
Cam,
it's just, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Cam brought me this beautiful sample of a blonde beer, and he's like, taste this, it's so delicious. And I was like, yeah, this is really awesome. And he's like, I'm gonna go dump blueberry in it now.
Like, oh.
But it's really good. It's really good. I really enjoy it.
Is it
That blonde was amazing for the
It was
record.
amazing,
It
yeah.
was so
It
good.
was really good.
Are you using like aseptic fruit purees type of thing? Like the
exactly.
the good stuff. Okay, like real serious.
The good stuff.
Is it
The really good stuff.
The really good stuff. Like, well, that's going to make the that arrow through the heart a little softer, being that at least you're putting good fruit into it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Is it I haven't seen the actual pour. Are they pouring kind of like super murky? So is there like how much fruit I guess is there in it? Like, is it still quite obvious that it's a slightly fruited lager, or is it like a balls to the wall, like let's just dump a shit over?
No, we're not talking about a smoothie lager here.
Okay.
It is a filtered product because we really wanted stability and we didn't want to overwhelm in either direction. I think that's something I still wanted the blonde base to come through one way or another. So it like the fruit should complement, and I think they do actually. I don't think we went too hard in anything. They all come through at like the level we were working for, which again, that's a lot of like, thanks to Richard for like bearing with me on that one. It's a lot of like, taste it. Yeah, we need a little bit more of in this direction or that direction. And then, it's a lot of trial and error basically.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I brought some home and my partner had them, and he was like, oh, it still tastes like beer. I was like, yeah, but it's just got some fruit in it.
Okay, so it's like a subtle, yeah. Okay, I mean that's more on brand from what I understand that you guys are doing. That makes sense because it would almost be
that's the key word right there. The art of subtlety is how do you do something without like punching someone in the face with it. Gotcha.
And that feels like that's kind of what you guys do. Man, I am loving this Vienna. God damn, this is glorious. I just don't really drink these beers as often as I should, so it's fantastic. But I love that you guys are able to do, experiment a bit, do something fun, even if it breaks Cam's heart. Like, you're able to... Sorry, man. At least you're able to do something cool and make a fun campaign around it. And I really enjoy... I've never been into beer blending, but it's like a whole subculture of people, like, love that shit. Like, the beer cocktails and the beer blending people are these, like, people are into it. And the fact that it's, like, not essentially, it is the same base. Is that accurate? The same base beer goes into all of the different flavor fruits.
Yeah. So Richard can speak to this probably better than I can, but I know historically there was different bases used, but this time we decided to go with the set base so that we could really make sure we dialed in the fruit to like base flavor,
to the same thing. Gotcha.
And get it to what we were looking for exactly.
Okay. Which means that when you blend it, it's not like two completely different things. Really, you're blending the same base, like Hellas blonde, whatever you want to call it, just with different fruits. They're still being kind of filtered, so it's not smoothie style. It's just nice and like delicately flavored with real fruit puree. And then you can be like a bit of watermelon, like, and it made me like, yo, this is a pretty cool flavors. Like watermelon is always fire. Like you got like the tropical. So it's lime, blueberry, watermelon, mango. Is that right?
Yep.
Sick.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Here for it. I love it. I think that's super interesting and encouraging people to blend individual beers like that when you can enjoy them by themselves, but you can put a couple together. I think that's super cool. Do any of you guys have a favorite of the flavors? Because it seemed like there was somebody that had like they blended lime and lime. Like they didn't eat. They were just like,
Yeah.
that's my,
That was Cam.
That was Cam.
That was my protest part of the post.
That was it. He's like, all right, I'm here. I'm not blending, Kyra. You made me ruin my beer with fruit. I'm not blending it. Okay.
It's closer.
Yeah,
to the
I asked him. I was like,
conversation
Cam,
than
I
I'll
was
probably
like, what's your mix? And he's like, I just want to do lime. And I was like, okay, fine.
Fine, Cam. Do you guys? Okay. Well, we know Cam's faves. Do you guys have any faves?
I like the blueberry lime, actually. It is really good. And then the watermelon blueberry is very good as well.
Yeah, both super subtle flavors. That'd be good.
Mm-hmm. And then just for me, if I was to highlight anything, I think, I've had the luxury of just kind of seeing this blueberry brand develop over the course of its years. And it's undisputed this year across the whole company. Like, this is by far the best blueberry, like just single infusion beer that we've done. And it just goes to show you just like, man, when you do something multiple times and it has multiple chances to be reiterated, it just gets better and better. And there's like this like jump off point where like, sometimes it tastes a little better, sometimes it tastes better, but you get to a point and it's just like, whoa, that's way better. And that's just kind of years of just tweaking and experimenting and just picking on the small things.
That's what you got to do, man. If you're not doing that, then what's the point of it all, right?
Yeah.
Particularly with this type of stuff. That's super cool. So that's like the latest kind of fun thing that you guys have dropped. I mean, while we're on that topic, then, I mean, you guys have, like you said, you have on, if someone came into the Old Flame retail store tomorrow, obviously to buy the mixer pack to get the craft lagers and then to get one of each of the, or two of each of the mixers so you can enjoy one by itself and then start mixing the rest. What other beers would people typically be able to get? Do you have any other year-rounders or, sort of things that people could expect to see in the stores over and above the Crispies and such?
Yeah, we always have an IPA going for sure. We've been doing our New England IPA Sean's Way and our West Coast IPA Pear Love Mary. So we usually kind of go back and forth between those two. A couple weeks back we dropped our Moment Pale Ale, which has been really good. And we have another one coming in the works too, a new little beer, Richard, you could probably talk about, give a little sneak peek too.
Ooh, would love to. Oh shit, you're like right now?
Yeah,
go for
it.
it.
Oh, snap. Okay, yeah.
I was trying to be subtle about it, but.
All right, sweet. No, honestly, man, I didn't know if we were gonna get into this, but my team knows. I've tried to reserve my excitement for this one because I try not to let my personal biases and my personal bleed too much into what we do at Old Flame. But this one is definitely like a passion project of mine, just based off of certain recipes that I personally love. And we were able to marry it with a brand and a story that I don't think could have been more timely. But the beer is going to launch probably end of May, early June. And it's going to be called The Little Things. And really the story is just about, right now, just given the whole current circumstances of the world, it's really the little things that we kind of have to pay attention to and appreciate and find, the little things that bring us joy. And the recipe that I thought would marry with that story really well is a classic German Hefeweizen. Given our kind of roots with traditional German lagers and German recipes, I don't know, I definitely have an affinity towards German beers. There are certain brands that I love drinking in the summertime. And in the industry, you often see more so like Belgian wheat beers. And so you have a little bit more pronounced of coriander and orange peel and a little bit more flavors that were added to the beers. But a German Hefeweizen, very Reinheitsgebot. It's got 4 ingredients. And the magic happens in the cellar where, between myself, Cam, and the rest of the production team, we are just dialing in fermentation temperatures, the pitch rates of the yeast to really like drive in a particular yeast character that we're really trying to get. And, for us, again, because of our focus on the art of subtlety, you're not going to get smashed with banana and cloves, but really, again, you got this really soft, full body that comes from that wheat malt and all the proteins that come in from the type of mash regime that we employ. And then you have this just like meticulous degree by degree control so that we're monitoring how much production and characteristics that the yeast provide. But right now it's in the fermenter, it's sitting at 4 degrees and we're just kind of waiting for labels to come in. But I am super excited for myself just to drink it, but for the rest of our community and our fans to give it a try. But it's something that we haven't done before.
Okay. Is that almost surprising, being that Hefeweizen is one of the other major German styles, and you guys are super focused on German beers? Why haven't you looked into something like that before?
That's a really good question, and I was actually asking myself the same thing. A lot of like I said, I try not to make my own personal biases go into development of the recipes. I really just try to kind of get a feel for what's out there, what people are looking to drink. Another thing that I think about is what can I make to make my sales team's life easier? Like, what can they really push? And when you look at the wheat category, which I actually love, it's not small, it's not overly big. It's there. And it's predominantly 2 things. Generally skews Belgian, and it skews kind of macro, because if you ask anybody about wheat, generally people are thinking, and honestly, most of them are pretty good. Like, my favorite is, I love Blanche de Chamblay. You have that macro marketing power of Shock Top and Hoegaarden. And then in the craft industry, Side Launch has always kind of rooted themselves in that style, but the list isn't particularly long. And so to me, I was, we just got kind of hungry. We're just like, man, what would happen if we did a really good version of this? What would we do? What would happen if we, gave it a really good brand and a good story? Like, could we make something out of it? And we'll figure it out come late May or early June.
I like that.
And it really ties back into that moment pale ale we were talking about too, right? Just kind of, what's your moment? Like, are you enjoying this moment right now? Like, are you fully immersed? Like, are you having this beer right when you get home? Or is it a shower beer, right? Like, what's your moment? And we tied that in also to we have a light lager called No Regrets, where it's a low alcohol, low cal lager. And you've just really tied it into kind of this lifestyle concept, really, which is, I think this hef is really going to round out that series, and it's going to be really awesome.
That's dope. So we'll come in the short cans then, if that's in line with that. Cool. I like the short cans as well. I mean, I feel like for the crispies, short cans are dope, but you want a little more. It's a crispy. They're not they're 5%. It's whatever. But I think it's cool to have, for there's something about the short cans that is just super convenient, single serving. You don't need to share it. It's yours. I like that. And having all that tie in, that's super dope. I would imagine that your glasses are as empty as mine.
Yeah, you read my mind.
We're going for the brunette next, the Munich Dunkel Lager. I haven't had a Dunkel in a while. So talk to me about. Okay, so I almost feel dumb even asking this, but I always remember, I used to love like the banana in the Dunkels. Is that like a main flavor profile of a Dunkel beer, or is that just some that happen to have
So that's probably more like the Erdinger, like the Hefeweizen Dunkels kind of thing.
Okay.
Where this one is more along the lines of the clean Munich dark lager. So
Okay.
definitely a little bit darker than the red.
Yep.
Still that beautiful clarity. Oh.
Ooh, look at that, mate. Bloody ripper. Oof. Yeah, work. So
get it in ya.
Mate, please get it in. We just.
I don't know if that was offside, but I really wanted to try saying one time.
No, it's never offside to say get it in your Rich, okay? Always say it. There's never a bad time. Oh, okay. We do like this. We do that first. Okay. We just do the photos as we go. You know what I'm saying? We got to do the content creation along the way. It's very important. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Ooh, yeah. You see, so I'm getting directions here. Yeah. Tell us. Okay. Tell us about a Dunkel, because what makes it a Dunkel? What is the style about? Break it down.
So this is my absolute favorite one in the signature series that we're drinking now. I love making this one, and I love the final product is just so beautiful. The color is so deep. It's got that like auburn. We're really looking for like bread crust, like a toasty kind of flavor. I get some nuttiness and like a little bit of like dark chocolate on the very end, and to me this is just like it's when it's the best, which I'm assuming this batch will be. It's the perfect balance. It's got that little bit of sweetness and a little bit more of a hot backbone, honestly, compared to the other lagers, just to keep everything together, because there's a more malt variety in this one.
Jeez, this is fantastic. This is. Man, I swear to God, I drank 1,000 Dunkels back in the day, and I feel like it's been so long. I almost feel like this is a whole new style being opened up right now. This is really fantastic. I feel like it's just like taking the Vienna to like the next step. Like you said, Cam, it's a little more complex. Toffee, that's the word. Toasted bread crust. Ooh, I like this tasting notes.
Are they good? I didn't even look.
Yeah, it's good. I love tasting this when people like write ridiculous things. It's like a dank rainforest. Yeah. Okay, this is great. So, I mean, look at this color, like you said, super. Still, tons of clarity in like it's like the next sort of layer, darkness above the Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
It's got it's still the caramel, but it's like a whole different. Like it's more toasty. What did this just say? Toffee. I think toffee is probably like a deeper caramel. I mean, it's semantics, but it makes a difference. Okay. What's the vibe with this type of one? Like, how do people feel about, do you have the same sort of challenges maybe getting to drink this or the Raven and the Vienna? Or is it to give people, because the Dunkel is pretty, I guess, a relatively well-known style? Maybe?
I don't know about how people... like Kyra would be the best one to speak for how people approach it. But I feel like if you do get into it, like if you give this one a shot, it's kind of like an intro to the darker beers, because it doesn't have like the full-on roast character.
Right.
And none of that smokiness or full-on chocolatey. I think this one it's still got the base refreshing character for all our lagers. And that's what I really enjoy. It's got more depth of flavor. There's a lot more to explore in it, but with the drinkability, which is what I love about this product.
Yeah, for sure. I always say that brunette is like toasted and then Raven is more roasted, and which is what really separates the two. A lot of people it's really interesting. We have one regular, he loves red and he loves brunette, and like he will buy them both and like still enjoy them. Like they're both his go-to, which is so interesting, right? Because a lot of people will find them so similar when like the more you kind of analyze them, they are very different. And so it is cool to see the people who will still have both and enjoy them, and then the people who are like, no, I'm a red lover, no, I'm a brunette lover, right? They will pick and choose, and then some people will just grab the mix pack because they enjoy all four, right?
I can see that. This is so interesting to me. I think when I see the word dunkel, I just think of that banana. So just remind me. So the banana is a specific, like a regional version of this.
It's a yeast derived thing. So that'll be like the one I always think of, like the classic example would be Erdinger Dunkel.
Right.
And that one's it's like a dark wheat beer. So it's still using the Hefeweizen yeast that'll give off those banana esters. Exactly, where banana esters in this one is exactly. That's the best way to describe it. Where this one we're trying to probably steer a little bit more away from that. Like esters in general. Like we're looking for cleanliness still.
And this is super clean. It's definitely like a step to. It's like a nice little you got the blonde and then the Vienna, this bad boy, and then the black lager. So it's like a nice sort of like slowly ramping up the level of toastiness, but it's just so drinkable. This is ridiculous. This is fantastic. I feel like this. Would you guys say that this is is there many of these around, like whether locally in Ontario or anything that you guys are aware of, at least in this style?
I don't think so at all, really. No. I wish. I love this style, but no, you don't come across them too often. Unless Richard or Kyra have tried one that I haven't really seen many.
I feel like they usually just get lumped in with the dark lager category rather than really getting specific, right? People will just call it a dark lager. Like Waterloo Dark is really good. But yeah, it's just lumped under the dark lager category rather than specifying that it would be a dunkel, essentially, really.
That makes sense. It's like this is a cool way to, and because I've had the Raven, I guess, so I'm looking forward to that. But like, it's just a nice way to round out like the mix pack with all the different elements, and I can see why that it takes people on like a journey. It's almost like a mini little tasting, a flight, but a large flight, but a flight nonetheless. Going through some of the key things. On that note, I mean, maybe we should chat a little bit about this pack. How long has this thing been around? So people who are actually, I always forget that there are listeners and not just viewers. So there's a craft lager pack I'm holding in my sweet little hands. It is a box with 4 different beers in it, as we talked about earlier: the Helles, Vienna, Dunkel, and Black Lager. That and this is extraordinarily affordable too, which I very much appreciated. Particularly as you guys were talking about earlier, that these beers take a lot of time. There's a lot of energy and effort and love in these products, but the fact that you're able to sell 4 beers for, is it $12 something?
13, I think it ends up coming to be.
I mean, that's pretty damn good for a local craft lager. It always had to be $3 and some change, a can of exquisitely well-made lager in a mix pack, without you having to buy. You went to brew at some breweries, just sell them in 4-packs. You were forced to buy 4-packs of something. So, you're able to actually get a nice 4-pack for a very, very reasonable price. I mean, these are the type of beers that I would imagine a lot of people would want to buy in cases because they're so crushable, they're so refreshing. These are the type of beers that I would want in my fridge at all times. Just to have a nice, reliable, crushable, tasty, crispy boy in various color forms and various levels of roastiness that you want to drink. So, when did this pack kick off? Maybe that's a Kyra question.
Yeah, so the pack itself came to fruition probably around this time last year, but the concept was not new in the tap room for a really long time. Like, those craft, like the Snap-on 4-packs, right? The little black ones that you kind of hold. For the longest time, we just had a shelf dedicated to a 4-pack that style: blonde, red, brunette, and Raven. And any new faces that would come into the brewery, they'd be like, "Oh, tell us about your beers," and we would just show them that. They're like, "Hey," we're like, "Hey, this is a great introduction to our beers. Find out which ones you like. Go home, do your own tasting, and then kind of come back and grab a case of your favorites," like you said. And it just did so well because, like I said, we have a lot of tourists who come through, a lot of people looking for gifts as well. So gifting that pack to a loved one, And we're like, let's put it in a box. Why not? So that's where it kind of started. And then it has gone to us getting it into the LCBO. So we're really excited for this pack to be an introduction to us, or be a great pack for someone who just wants a versatile alignment of lagers.
I love it. And repeat the date. It was May 23rd.
23rd, yeah.
Yes,
Victoria Day weekend, it'll be in LCBOs.
Oh, perfect. I forgot about that. May 24th. Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is super dope, and I think that in a time where craft beer isn't the cheapest thing in the world, and people understand why. It's local. It's hops are not cheap. The ingredients aren't cheap. It's a small business people want to support, like you guys were saying earlier on. It's all about buying local and everything. But for you to be able to have a fantastic pack with 4 completely different styles of lagers, all lagered as well, which means none of these guys have spent less than a month in the tank, for $13 or something. I mean, that's pretty wild to me. That was one of the first things that stuck out to me personally. Was like that is extraordinarily affordable and beyond reasonable for the quality that you guys are offering. So I think that is it's fantastic. I imagine that resonates quite well with your audience. That people are just like, yo, this is like fire beer, like genuinely like world class stuff. It does not.
Craig, I really appreciate you bringing that up, man. It's I was just watching Cam smile, and you could see him get all warm, and Kyra's getting all warm, and you're really kind of like, you're speaking our gospel, right? And like, actually, I think about a week ago, I think me, Jack, and Kyra were in a room together, and it's funny. Jack vehemently is against this whole idea of like exclusivity.
Okay.
He like anything VIP, he's like allergic to. Like for him, man, like a party is when everyone can participate. Kyra, she's super humble, and she won't tell you all of the amazing work that she does leading our inclusivity committee. But it really is kind of at like the heart of who we are, and it shows through pricing too. Like we never want pricing or a price to be the thing that gets in the way of people wanting to enjoy our stuff. And so I remember I caught a snippet of the podcast you did with Tooth and Nail with Matt Tweedy.
Yes,
and I remember catching, he said something and I was like, man, I totally feel that, where he said he wished he could sell his lagers the most out of any of the beers he sells, because he knows what goes into it. And trust me, like me and Cam will have those conversations behind the scenes too. We're just like, man, like, how hard we work on these things. Like they should be way more expensive, but it would defeat the purpose of like why we exist, right? Like, why do you start a beer company? Because you want people to have a good time and you want to create good memories, and like you don't want to add barriers to that. You actually want to just work towards eliminating as much of them as you can. And so price is definitely something we're very keen on, and just, okay, what is fair price? Where is, what makes sense from a business point of view, but also like, man, like let's get as many people to this table as possible.
Hell yeah, man. And that's a great point. I remember Matt saying that, that it was important that if he could sell them any cheaper than he did, he would, and he wished that people would, that would be his number one product, and I feel like it's definitely been a thing. But I guess there's some sort of like this, the way the craft beer has evolved into these $6, $7, $8, $9 cans of IPAs, because, and I don't think anyone's ripping anybody off. I genuinely believe that. I saw the, like, we do collab with breweries. They send me the hop sheets. I see the prices of Incognito and Cryo hops and Nelson and stuff like that. Like, things aren't cheap. Like, they're extra. Like, I'm looking at one like yesterday for Incognito hops, and I think it was $600 or $700, like a kilo. compared to like $40 a kilo for like regular hops. Obviously, it sucks up a lot less of the beer, but I'm like, this is insane. I had no idea it was that wild. So, you know, the ingredients are all local, small batch stuff. That's the whole point of this. So I feel like there's an element of people willing to pay more for stuff, but at the same token, it's always refreshing to see, you know, when you can get really well-crafted beers at an affordable price. Once again, I wasn't trying to harp on it or anything. I just think it's really impressive that you're able to, you know, you had to print this box, and then you have to get the beers and then package each of the beers, and you got to put each of the beers by hand into the box. Like, I understand what goes, you know, I'm not a man, I haven't worked in a brewery, but I get what goes into this. This is a labor of love, right? And you guys aren't making hundreds, you guys making thousands of these bad boys. Tens of thousands, probably.
Shane hand packs every single box. He
Every
is
box.
the absolute champion.
That's, you know, that's valuable, and that's worth something. So whenever I see this thing, I mean, I was like, yo, this is super cool to you know, this just doesn't just like turn up on a shelf like this. You know, people might not really think about what that takes, and because I'm fortunate enough to be able to spend time with wonderful people like yourselves, I have a bit more perspective perhaps on how this sort of thing comes to be. So when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is beautiful. And you got all these awards, these 5 awards, and you got the whole thing. And you ain't charging like that much for it. I could genuinely, like, I paid, obviously we all have probably paid more than that for one beer before, type of thing, let alone 4 fantastic beers. And I think that just speaks to the value of that type of stuff, particularly Crispies as well, which is what really stood out to me, because that's something that's important to me personally. Is this style. So I just wanted to really make sure we had a solid segment on this, talking about this pack, because I just think it's fantastic. You know, the fact that you're able to do that, you're able to offer it, and the fact it's even better getting it into the LCBOs, which is great. And it's going to definitely make, you know, if you can picture someone walking into an LCBO wanting to, I need a little something. This is sort of like, you know, it's an answer in a pack, because I feel like the average consumer into an LCBO doesn't want like 4 of the same thing, and to be able to get all of it in one easy thing is super convenient. So I'd be super curious to see, you know, catch up with you guys, you know, maybe do it later this year or early next year or something, and see how all that's going, because I love that idea, and hopefully it's the first of many. I bet you guys would have already thought about doing the 4 fruited lagers in a pack like this.
Yeah, if we could get boxes going. Cardboard's expensive these days.
I bet. I mean, even the you know, even just in the 4-pack little thing, but you know, just be able to get them in this easy to, you know, this super convenient format is super cool. I love the whole like idea of all of that. I guess you were, like you said, you're offering these ones just with the little, you know, the 4-pack holders. You're probably doing that already with the fruited lagers.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we got tons in 4-packs right now.
Good.
For the fruit beers. Because people want to try them all, right? We've done the lime and the blueberry before, and they were very popular last year, so people kind of know what to expect with that. But the watermelon and the mango are both new additions this year, so right. It's fun to sell it as a 4-pack, like we talked about mixing them, but also just to try to find out which one you like. I think the mango is going to be a huge hit. Mango's hot right now. We made Cam made a mango IPA for us around Christmas time, and people are still asking about it. Like it's really crazy, and we keep saying, "Cam, you gonna do another mango IPA?" He kind of rolls his eyes, but
he really is
he's a total purist, but it's a good attitude to have around here.
You need it,
But we got around that by mixing our Moment Pale Ale with our mango lager now. So that's kind of like what we call kind of our new mango one.
I hear we're doing the
I was telling him about Mango Tango, Cam.
Do we have to? No, honestly,
I was just talking about how people love mango right now. So,
well, and like the mango flavor is something we try and emulate in hops so much. So it's just, you know, it's natural that we flow in that direction. I honestly can't wait to make the next Mango Tango. I get literally bothered by the front of house staff every single day. I think just because they know it gets to me a little bit, but yeah, like it's such a good, and there's such good quality mango purees that we're able to get right now. So I think that's part of it. Like the ingredient is just so good.
It seems
it's hard to argue when people are asking about it all the time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It seems like the perfect summer beer. So you said you did it last Christmas, so it was like a winter thing.
I actually made it in November, I think. Richard will be able to probably remember the exact date a little better. What was that? That was like my first brew here or something like that, right?
No, Craig, honestly, that was a good point. It would be an amazing summer beer, but you know what, man? We wanted to take people on a little bit of a vacation, like a little bit of a tropical vacation during the wintertime. And like, you know, we had this whole like concept of a series where just like, man, like no one can travel right now. So like, how can we take people on a vacation through our recipes? And it never ended up fully getting executed the way we talked about, but it's still something we'll play with, but man, it's crazy what like a little bit of mango in the wintertime can do for your mood.
And it was boozy. It was like, what was it, like 8 or 9%? So people loved it for enjoying over the holidays, right? Because I mean, you're not going anywhere anyways, but especially near Christmas time, like you just kind of hunker down, drink those boozy beers, and enjoy yourself.
Share them as well. Yeah, no, totally. I love that. Was that a New England style kind of IPA with that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And I know I'm getting painted as a little bit of a purist on this one, but honestly, I love making the big New Englands. Like those are some of my favorite beers to brew. And then, yeah, like honestly, to me, a really orange forward, mango forward, like that kind of a tropical fruit around Christmas. I actually love that. I know that's like not what the industry tries to push, but man, that beer for the time was so perfect for me. I don't know. It worked.
Mm-hmm.
It worked.
I love it. So it's coming back again for the people. Is what you said.
For the people.
For the people.
Not for Cameron. For the people.
For the people.
Not for you so much. So I know we're probably like halfway through this beer. I'm trying to be cognizant of time. Should we? I'm going to finish this late. Should we move on to the Raven and then so we can make sure we fit this in? You don't have to chug. I always do this. Like I've actually been drinking all of these beers all the way through this evening because they're so crushable. But I typically would save beers till after. Would you guys like to move to the Raven?
Yeah, let's talk about Raven.
Let's jump to the Raven.
Okay, I'm gonna
let's go to the Raven.
I need to use the washroom. Would you be so kind as to break down what that's all about, the Black Lager and how that came about and what the deal is with that? We'll be back in 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Raven is one of my favorite beers here at Old Flame. As we've talked about it a little bit throughout this cast here. It's dark, it's got a ton of depth, and yet it finishes smooth and clean on the palate, and it makes you really want to go for another sip, which is so important with the lagers. It does look dark, but it's got a little bit of a ruby edging to it. Richard and I always like to look it up, like right to the light to take a look at it. It's got this beautiful tan, frothy head to it. The aroma is just dark chocolate, dark roast coffee, a bit of smoke kind of near the end, and then the flavor translates all those flavors as well. As Craig would say, get it in ya.
Yes.
Raven is it's just got so much depth, and it's just so versatile as a beer. Like I love pairing this beer with pretty much any, like from apps to desserts. It can go with anything. Like, I don't know, my dream dinner, I guess, would be like bacon wrapped scallops, and then like a steak on the grill, and then like a raspberry cheesecake, and then just pair this beer with every single dish. That would probably be like my go-to dinner.
I want an invite to that dinner.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Maybe I should just do it and like put it on the socials and just say, hey, this is the Raven go-to dinner, I guess.
Do it. What was the dinner? I love it.
Oh man. I was just talking about how Raven is just so versatile and it can go with so many different foods. And I said, as an app, I would do bacon wrapped scallops and then something on the grill like a steak, and then like raspberry cheesecake to finish.
Oh man, I'm so hungry now. I'm thinking about it. I just ate. That's bacon wrapped scallops. So come on.
Hey, Cam, can I just blast you real quick for 1 sec?
Fire. Go ahead.
Is Laura Cottrell your mom?
Yes. Why do you ask?
Yes, because she just commented. Hi, Mrs. Cottrell.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Classic.
she did.
Hi, Mrs. Cottrell.
Let me bring
What
that
time?
comment up.
You know what's really funny actually is this means that my wife definitely just gave her the link because I intentionally didn't. But I was talking to her and she was really excited because I was like, yeah, Craig, he's a podcaster from Montreal. Can my parents live in Montreal? And they're like, amazing.
Oh.
Maybe we can get some beer tips from around Montreal. And I was like, guys, that's really not the point.
No. They can talk to you. Can pass them my email. Hi, Lara. Lovely. Thank you for coming. Raven is amazing. Yes, honestly, if they more than seriously, I'll hook them up. I'll put them whatever they need to go wherever they're at. I'll put them in touch. I know what's going on out here. Happy
All right,
to.
I appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Genuinely, it's my pleasure. There's nothing better, obviously, than sharing beer with good people, right? This is what we're all here for. So, yeah, black lagers. Black lagers are one of the most underrated styles, I think, in beer. They probably, and you guys could. I imagine you just spoke to this, Kyra, when you were talking about it. That I imagine this is probably something that will probably have the largest pushback. As far as like, oh no, look, I mean, it looks like a Guinness or something like that, but it tastes like heaven.
Yeah, like I said before, I always encourage people at the tap room to have a sip of it. And yeah, they're always like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it, and then they have a sip and they're like, oh yeah, this is really good. Especially, I don't know, it's been raining here all day, so especially on a real dreary day, a black lager is just delicious to enjoy. I actually got to do a brew with Cam not too long ago for this beer.
Nice.
That was a great day.
I think that probably is this batch, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Actually,
this is maybe.
It's the Kyra batch.
Yeah.
This is.
I believe this is the Kyra batch.
4th of April. Package 4th of April.
Yeah. I think that probably is the Kyra batch, which is awesome, honestly.
I can taste it.
Yeah. On the love and care that she put into it was unbelievable. I didn't have to stress out even one time. It was great.
Yeah. I was slinging grain bags.
Is that your next move?
Yeah, seriously.
You're trying to move from comms to Cam.
Yeah, I'm happy in comms, but I mean, the more you learn, right? It just the more you can translate to comms. But we usually leave this unfiltered, right? But then we filtered a most recent batch, did we not, folks?
So I think that's like it's hard to tell unless you've got a light right by it, because it honestly, with the time it spends in tank, especially this brand, we give it lots of time to really mature. It clarifies quite a bit, but me and Richard have been talking about this since, well, like pretty much forever. Like, what would happen if we filtered it? And I think that's the direction we're moving from now on, realistically. It didn't change the character, like the flavor too much, I don't think. But it definitely, if you shine a light through it, it's really ruby, which I'm about. No, I have to say, it's all for, it depends, right? Like, I have to say that I filtered that Raven and it didn't even feel like filtering it. It just went right through because it was aged. Like, and that's the thing about lagers, right? We talk about filtration, but like, there's the first part of filtration, which is just the aging. And I think that's kind of like what gets missed there is a lot of times if you're filtering a beer that's been aged appropriately, it's like you're hardly filtering anything out. It kind of goes through the sight glass on the one side and looks the same on the sight glass on the other side. And I feel like that's really what's happened for us for Raven. So it was a very not challenging filter. I'll put it that way.
I love it. No,
if you guys don't mind, can I riff on this a little bit too, Craig?
Of course, bro.
Man, one of the funny, I don't know how many people you've kind of talked to about black lagers, but I think I have a funny story around them, and it's like,
please.
I wanted to share this with you guys. I know my team's heard me talk about this before, but so black lagers are rooted in German recipe design history, and they're called Schwarzbiers. And essentially the point of a Schwarzbier is if you were to drink it with your eyes closed, you wouldn't actually think of it as a dark beer because it drinks and finishes like a clean Pilsner or just a light lager.
Mm-hmm.
But then you open your eyes and you're just kind of like, oh shit, this is really black. And so the way you go about that is you use like a refined malt. So you get the darkness from the roasted character, but the maltster is able to remove like that heavy roast burnt flavor that you would get from a Guinness or some of the stouts out there, where like that roasted burnt character is actually acceptable and desirable. And so oftentimes when we're brewing this beer, I think about like, man, like the first team of guys to design this recipe, and like, you know, they're in their like German brewery and they're just hanging out and they're just like, man, like, and it's so German to me in the sense that it's like because it's such a technically interesting beer. It's like, okay, guys, and let's just imagine me saying this in a German accent, but just like, okay, guys, like, let's design a black beer with roasted malts. But hold on, let's take all of the roast and burnt characters out of it. And to me, like, that is so nerdy and so geeky and so like craft to me. Right. It's such a cool beer.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like it's one of the more underrated styles in the lager realm, as far as like what it offers, and the like this mouthfeel is exceptional. And I think Kyra, you said earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said it's toasty, not roasty. Which way was this one? Which one was the black lager?
Yeah, no, I always say that what separates brunette and Raven is that brunette is toasted and then Raven's roasted.
Okay. So I was trying to, this feels like there's definitely a deeper sense of that sort of like, I don't want to say charcoal, but that realm of like, you know, fire element of how deep these malts are actually, you know, toasted, I believe. And the mouthfeel is crazy, and it's just like, I think, Rich, you were right when you just like, if you close your eyes, you wouldn't be able to pick that this is what it looks like in any shape or form. I think it's one of the greatest sort of deceptive beer styles, more so than sort of even like the low ABV stouts and stuff that have a completely different profile. Even though if you put them side by side, they essentially look identical.
Definitely.
And it's something that, you know, maybe some people need to get over that hump. Once you try them, like you're saying, Kyra, in the tap room, you're like, nah, look, try Vienna, the Dunkel, this one, just try it and you'll see. Like, give them an ounce, 2 ounces, and you're like, oh, wow, this is really something. I feel like these are, of the whole range, aside from, I mean, the Helles seems to be probably the most common. I'd say there'd probably be more black lagers than the others that are around. Am I stretching? I mean, I'm picturing Ontario specifically because you guys would be more familiar with that. Because there's not many black lagers here at all.
There's a couple notable black lagers. I know anyone who went to Niagara College, because Silversmith is in Niagara-on-the-Lake, the Silversmith Black Lager. Everybody went and got those on tap when you were at the school.
Great beer, man.
And that's a great beer, honestly. Only good memories.
There's Napanee.
And, yeah, Napanee. I actually think there's a couple more. I think that it's a style that you can connect to the stout drinkers a little bit. But in like a more, the drinkability is very high, of course. So, super. And with the lager kind of finish and character, I think there's definitely a lot more uptake on these compared to the Dunkel and the Vienna, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you're feeling the same way I am, but it's like, I mean, they're all phenomenal in their own ways. I mean, maybe because I think you're right. I think maybe the stout drinkers are probably more attracted to this because there's some people who might not drink a lot of other things that we would consider pretty standard, but they'll be like balls deep in stouts and just be going hard on that. And then this would definitely speak to those individuals. So it's
yeah. I have people in the summertime come by and they're like, "Oh, what do you have for a stout on tap?" And I'm like,
Dude,
how about you try the black lager? And not that we don't brew stouts, like we'll have some in the winter months, but for the most time, like if I recommend the black lager, they end up enjoying it and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the profile I'm looking for, even though it might not have the same body. It's all those same flavors that are coming through that typically is what a stout drinker is looking for, right?
Great point. I don't even feel like it's that far removed from is this 5%? It is 5%. Yep. I mean, look, if you put this in a side and a like just a typical, crushable 5.5% stout side by side, I mean, the differences are going to be, I was going to say minimal, maybe that's being a little bit, I mean, they're going to have different flavor profiles, but they're not going to be like markedly like, oh my gosh, it's crazy different. Like, so you're right, the person who's looking for that typical Guinness profile, they're going to find part of that in this beer for sure, and that's going to definitely hit some of those, tick off some of those boxes. It's just like, yeah, it's an interesting one. I imagine this would probably, even more so than the rest of them, this would probably be the one that would get the most pushback because it looks scary in comparison to the blonde that they're kind of looking for. But I'm like, yeah, it's not that far removed from it. It really isn't.
A lot of our beers are super approachable, and like that is just so awesome to say. Even people who don't drink craft beer that will come through our doors, and you get some people who are like, oh yeah, like I don't drink craft beer, and it's like, okay, well, try the blonde. They'll probably end up enjoying it, and then you kind of just introduce them from there, and then when you get to the Raven, they're still enjoying it, and they're surprised, right?
That's interesting, because I guess you have the perfect thing with people. I don't drink craft. Well, here's a good version of what you're used to. One thing I just thought that just kind of, as you said that was interesting to me is that I personally, and I imagine being that all of us have been into beer a while, so we're all kind of the same, like there's a very, very large difference between a blonde ale and a lager. And the fact that this Helles lager is called, and if you look at it by itself, just called blonde, I mean, why is it called blonde? It's a Helles lager. But then you see red, brunette, but there's a reason, obviously there's a naming convention for all of these beers, which is very, a lot of common sense in that. It makes complete sense. In and of itself, that word blonde, has that ever affected it at all? Like, as far as, because, like, I would argue that blondes are inferior to the Helles, and this Helles is superior, very much so, than a typical blonde ale. But the blonde, does that ever throw people off that name? Or is it, I guess, if you're looking at on a board in the brew, you're seeing, like, everything in conjunction with each other, and it makes a lot more sense in that way.
I think, like, so talking about like the blonde, it definitely throws people off. There's no doubt about that. Like the blonde ale, which is really common across all craft breweries in Ontario, I would say like there's a lot of blonde ales out there. And calling our Helles Lager blonde, I don't know, Kyra would definitely be able to speak to how our consumer interacts with that. But the differentiation, like of the Helles, of our Helles Lager especially, compared to like a blonde ale is pretty enormous, right? Like, yeah, exactly. It really is night and day.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, like there's the focus. Like I really get the little bit of like it's like a burnt match sulfur at the start of our Helles that really just, and then the cleanliness to the crispness. Whereas like the blonde ales are focused on like, there's usually a lot of like fruity tastes and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm interested on this one too, Kyra. Like, do our customers ever think they're getting a blonde ale? Because I think that they know what they're getting into with the lagers when they start with us, right? I hope.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much confusion. I just think a lot of people like I mean, obviously we preach that we're a lager house, but at the same time, I think people mostly get caught up in the color of beers, right? Like what is this shade, and that will give them an indicator on like what maybe the flavors they can expect from it. So I think a lot of drinkers, as long as they see a bright, light, clear, golden beer, they're expecting something easy drinking for the most part.
Right. Do you ever get, I don't know why, just because when you were just describing it before, when you have your board in-house, it says blonde Helles Lager next to it. So it's pretty obvious. Does it say that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, no, it says blonde right underneath Helles Lager, and then we also have our hazy blonde, right, which is one of my favorites because I love the unfiltered brews. Yeah, the color beer.
So good, so good. Okay, I was just curious.
And they're the same recipe, right?
Okay, just unfiltered.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm a hazy blonde lover, and Cam's a blonde lover, so we're always battling it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And it is slightly, so the base recipe is, in terms of like malt bill, is the same. Where they get differentiated is yes, in filtration, the blonde is filtered, but also in how they're cellared. So yes. Steve, our cellar guy, has to pay a lot of attention to that stuff. So it's how long it stays on the yeast, and at what point in time it's transferred to a finishing tank. So the Keller beer is supposed to be fresh. Like that's part of the reason. We tell everyone the best place to get that beer is at the brewery. It is so good at the brewery because you're getting it on tap. It's so good when it's fresh. I transferred a hazy blonde yesterday, and having that thing as fresh as possible is amazing. It's a great experience. Excellent. And yeah, I tell Kyra I like the blonde more, but that's really just because, it's cleanliness, it's drinking it on a patio, it's just a different feeling, that's all.
Gotcha. I feel that. I had it only either this week or late last week on the weekend, and I was so impressed with that one. I sent one to my brother actually from the first lot. My brother's a part of our podcast. He engineers it all, and he's a photographer. So sometimes if I get a few of stuff, I'll make sure I hook him up to get some extra photos alongside Nate, our blogger, and the one that I told you about, Rich. And he was loving that one. Loved it. He was losing his mind over it. And I'd only had the blonde at that stage. So I was like, I need to have this the Keller beer. And I was so impressed. Just the whole lineup is super consistent, both branding wise and obviously, in all aspects, whether it's something like this, the pack that puts everything together. Now drinking them all and hanging out with you guys and actually hearing the stories behind them all, like I have a sort of a newfound appreciation. And then I had a couple of these beers prior, like I was saying, and I already enjoyed them thoroughly. And now I really get it, and I see why our community here at BAOS, the people who watch and follow us on social, we're always mentioning you guys. I really understand the now the ethos behind it all, and the way you guys are coming from with it, and the way that you guys are helping your consumers understand the differences between these styles and what it means to the difference between a Vienna and a Dunkel and a Black Lager in comparison to something like a Helles. And I think that's just a wonderful thing you guys are doing for the craft beer scene, maybe more than you probably even know in a world that now kind of is worshipping lagers that you maybe weren't when you started, which makes it even more fantastic that that Jack took the leap to do that and continued on and just kept making quality beer over the years, to the point where now the beer nerds are telling me about it. Like that's a fantastic achievement. I think that you're able to convince the beer nerds of I love all of us, but we're the worst, and that they've been able to be convinced by this and to be like, you guys have been doing it for all of these years consistently, nonstop. I think that's genuinely fantastic, and I'm even more excited after meeting you guys to get down there once Mr. Ford opens the provincial borders. Hopefully this summer we can. I was really looking forward, man. We used to be in Toronto once a month. Like it was a real regular thing for us. So this is kind of strange to be not in town and stuff. So it's unfortunate, but I guess these virtual situations allow us to continue to connect and build and get these stories firsthand. And I appreciate all of you guys for taking the time to break it on down for everybody. So thank you all so much. Did we miss anything at all that we wanted to cover this evening? I think we kind of nailed it all.
Just come visit us in our tap room when you're ready to do so. Like, we just love people coming and making memories. So we can't wait to host people, hopefully again soon. Fingers crossed.
No, I love it.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
And I was gonna say, it's been a trip that we're on here and we're talking about like this journey that we've been on for the past 7 years. But honestly, I think the next 7 is going to be a lot more interesting. So stay tuned.
No, I love it. I appreciate all of your time. Thank you guys so much. You guys have been super generous and kind with us, and I know it's been awesome to get to know you guys and to hang out. And you know, I'm even more of a fan than I was before, and I thank you all very much. Where can the good people find Old Flame Brewery, and you guys individually, if you would like people to find you? You don't have to let people find you, but where should everybody go?
We're available through our online shop 24/7. That one's open.
What's the website?
oldflamebrewingco.ca.
Thank you, perfect. Which is in the comments for anyone watching on YouTube, all the beers that we drank tonight.
We're also available in select LCBOs, so keep an eye out. If your LCBO does not stock us, tell them to give us a ring, and we will come there for sure. And yeah, toss us a follow on Old Flame Brewing Co. Old Flame Brewery is our handle. And we're always pumping out cool content, so toss us a follow there.
I love it. Cam or Rich, do you guys have anything to add to that, or you want to keep mysterious for the people?
I am a terrible social media user, so you'll see me occasionally against my will in Kyra's content on the Old Flame content.
When I convince Cam to do it, he is in my videos, yes.
It's all that matters. Do you know what I realized? We have to take the thumbnail for YouTube, so I'm going to take a screenshot. Do you want to hold up any cans or anything? I'm going to hold up a mix pack because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I'll hold the mix pack.
Yeah, mix pack. Can. Love it. Love it. Okay, you ready? Oh, that is gorgeous. That is just stunning. That is stunning. Honestly, guys, yeah, stick around for a sec. I'm going to wrap this up and we'll say goodbye off camera. But everybody, thank you all for commenting. Seriously, Lara, if you're still here, Cam, you can give your mother my email and I'll be more happy to point in the right direction.
I will.
Seriously.
You asked for it, man. I warned you.
You did?
Asked for it.
Look, I'm more than happy. I love it. It's nothing better than sharing great beer with everybody, right? So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, mate, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you know when the new year drops. Follow us on social media at BAOS Podcast and check out the long form audio so you can hear attractive individuals like the good team at Old Flame Brewery talking about craft beer. We'll be back tomorrow evening at 9 p.m. We are out here every week. We'll see you guys then. Get in.